I wanted to start out by talking about why I have checklists, and I'm going to go and get the buyer checklist on the screen while I'm doing it. So back in the day when I was a new agent, I made a big mistake on a contract. And the mistake that I happened to make was I was kind of close to closing, and I had a manufactured home under contract. And the lender, oh my gosh, it was like 5 weeks into the contract, called and said, well, I didn't know this was a manufactured home. We can't do the loan. I was like, what do you mean you don't know it's manufactured? It was in the MLS. It was on the appraisal. Like, it was everywhere, but it wasn't until it came back on the appraisal that they you look at the pictures, it is a manufactured home. There is no way around it. But this lender, I had something fall out of contract because they didn't know. So I thought, well, how do I make sure that this doesn't happen to me again? Oh, I should make a checklist. So all the things on my checklist when I was an agent were things that I had messed up on, that either kicked out a deal or I should have known, or next time I'll have to look into, kind of thing. And then when I became a manager, so this is, 13 years later or so, I my boss at the time, Gina Piccoli, she tasked me with making a checklist that combined all the checklists of everyone at Coldwell Banker in our office. So I got the best of the best out there, and I plugged some of those people's checklists into my own. And that's how this one was created. So if you're watching this, and Guida, if you're here from a different market, just know all you have to do is go into this checklist and change it to make sense for your market. But the checklist would be the same. It's just the phone numbers that you call might be a little bit different. But this would ensure if you use the checklist, you're not going to make major mistakes on the transaction, because almost everything is on here that I could possibly think of in my 20 years. And the same with everybody else in my office. So starting out, just to understand, let me see. I'm going to see if I can get Bay. So I have 4 different checklists. We have 2 for listings. One is going on a listing appointment, all the things you have to ask, all the things you want to make sure of. We have one for getting a listing. We have one for the buyers, which is this one. And we have one for a final walkthrough. That's per Kelly Spitzer in the Durango office. She does one to make sure she checks on everything. That way it's not an, oh, surprise, right after closing, the water's not working, those kind of things. So we have 4 different checklists in the office that do real well. They're sort of hidden away. If you need help with how to find them, just call me afterwards, but it's in company file, Durango office, intranet, checklist. They're kind of buried there. So keep them on your computer once you get them. But I'm just have this open so you can kind of see how you can get to where I keep the checklist. And if you just can't find it, you just want the buyer checklist after the meeting today, then just let me know and I'll email it to you. So on the buyer checklist, break in anytime if there's something. It kind of ends up being a long class because there's so many parts to this checklist I want to go over, but just break in anytime if you have questions and I'll get through it as quickly as I can. So on, and these are all Word docs. So you can literally download it and change it how you want and keep it for each of your buyers. Some of the things on here seem like pretty obvious to me, but I think when you're a brand new agent, the things you don't remember about signing disclosures. I also put things on here that if you've never had an office job before, because we get a lot of people who maybe you didn't go to college, maybe you didn't work off a computer before, you've had more kind of jobs where you're out in front of people, but you're not behind a computer. There are things on here about you actually have to do that on your computer. So there's some that you might just take off because you have no problem remembering certain things, but there's others that, yeah, I wouldn't take them off the checklist. One of the ones that I never felt like I needed, but it would be important, is make sure before you, this is before you're actually under contract. This is when you're about to write an offer. You have to talk to the people about how they want to be represented. And in Colorado, there's 2 different ways. You have the transaction broker or the buyer agency. So if the person wants to be have you as a buyer's agent where you can actually give advice, there's a contract that needs to be signed before you can start giving that person advice. So this is a reminder I never used to do it when I was an agent, but that was years and years ago, where I'd be a transaction broker and the person would get into writing the offer and they're like, what do you think? I don't know what to do. That's when I would start getting out the contract and say, okay, let's look at the buyer's agency. But every state's different. And this just means make sure you sign whatever transaction form you need to represent your client. So this is a newer one. It's come out in the last few years. Don't fool yourself that you think that there aren't recording devices on each and every property that you go to when you're showing. This is before you're under contract. Again, you're just showing properties. But you want to warn your people before you ever start showing property that recording devices are just everywhere now. And in Colorado, it needs to be disclosed that there is a recording device on the property if it's being used, right? But it doesn't mean that people do. So just because there's no sign doesn't mean it's not going to be there. So you warn your people whether you love the house or you hate the disgusting smell inside the house, but you want to buy it anyway. Any of those things that you want to make fun of the photos on the fridge, whatever it is that they want to do that might be thought as tipping your hand one way or the other, or insulting the client, the seller one way or the other, just take it out to the driveway. Don't talk in the house. Go out to the driveway and have your conversation. Don't be sitting inside the kitchen on the kitchen table like, oh, what should we offer? This is such a great house. What if we offer this? Well, I can go up higher. You're tipping your hand. So always assume that there is a recording device on the property, whether you see a sign or not. And I know different states might have different rules. So when there's different markets and we're getting into a more traditional kind of market, and when I would be interested, maybe there's interest from my buyers on a property, the way I handled it, which the worst thing that could happen is the house goes away. You take a night to think about it. Your buyers want a night to think about it. You call up the next morning and say, you're about to write an offer. And they go, oh, I wish I knew you were writing an offer. We just accepted one yesterday. It's like, So I found that it worked best for me to say, hey, buyers, I know you want a night to think about it, but would it be okay if I called the agent? And here is what I would say, is I'd say, hey, Tom, we had a pretty good showing over at your house on Oak today. Please don't tell your sellers there's an offer coming. My folks like the house. They want the night to think about it. As far as I know, I think they're going to be typing up an offer in the morning, but don't go telling your sellers because I don't want to, if they change their minds tonight, I don't want to upset them in any way. Worked like a charm. So then they feel like they're on your team, and the listing agent would go off and tell their sellers, well, it looks like there's a lot of interest, but then they don't want to let the people down either. So they don't go and say there's an offer coming, but the listing agent knows in their head there probably is an offer coming. That way, I'm not letting them down if the offer doesn't come, because I've done that before where they're like, where's that offer you said? I was like, my people are still thinking about it. But I wanted to warn them that there was interest. And the reason I do that is like, and Tom, if you get another offer or there's another offer coming in, would you give me a call? Again, they feel like they're on your team. They're going to help you out. And it gives you a little bit of breathing room to go and take the time to do the due diligence you need to do before you write the offer, or for your buyers to actually think about whether they want to write the offer. This isn't in the market we were. This is the kind of advice I'm giving you for a more traditional market where you have a little bit of breathing room before you have to write it up. So at the same time, when you're trying to like do your little due diligence about a property and you're letting people know you're writing up the offer possibly, right? That's when you're getting the lead-based paint disclosure sign, any of these things, and the law has changed. We have lead-based paint disclosures. Everybody's got to get a lead-based paint disclosure signed. We see them less and less because there's less and less homes that were built prior to 1978. But if that needs to be signed before you go under contract in your state, just remember it's there. In Colorado, you don't need it signed right away anymore. But it's another thing with manufactured. See, this wasn't one of my checklist items, but somebody said, man, you better know this before you go under contract. If it's a manufactured home, ask if the manufactured home has been moved, because if so, you're going to need to write that into the offer that you're going to need a foundation inspection. Okay. So when you're writing up the offer, there were very few questions that I felt like I needed to ask that buyer before I typed up my draft offer. As I got longer and longer into the business, I knew what those like 3 questions were right away. But one of them is, how do you want your names on the contract? And these are the 2 questions I needed, really. how do you want your names on the contract? Like, is this a trust? Is this just you? Is it going to be in one person's name? Is it both of you? Or depending on who's standing in front of you, maybe there's a kid going to college with the parents, like who's on the loan? Like how do I write this up? I needed to know that. And I needed to know, are you going out of town in the next 45 days? Those were the two questions I needed to know. And if they're going out of town, are you going to Timbuktu? I need to know, are you going somewhere where you're going to have your phone off and not able to be reached? And what are those dates so that I can structure the entire offer around it? There's no problem if somebody has a big backpacking trip right in the middle of it. That's, 5 days long. It's fine. We'll get the inspections done earlier or after that, probably earlier, but we just need to know so I can structure it. Oh God, isn't it the worst? You get something under contract. I'm sure you might've heard these stories. Like you get something under contract and then you get the inspection scheduled. And then you're a week into the contract. They go, oh yeah, so we got this Europe trip next week. You're like, what? Going to Europe? Where? And oh yeah, we got this bike trip and yeah, we're not going to have our phones on us. So just make sure you know about that ahead of time, because there's nothing wrong. You don't have to wait to write an offer to go on your bike trip, but you just need to know how to structure those dates. So scratch pad close, this is really just, everybody's got their own way of helping a buyer or seller know how much it's going to cost them to buy a house. So there are really cool little tricks on, we have CTS is one of the major title companies here. So Colorado Title Services, and they have a, what would you call it? It's not really an app, but it's a drop down and it'll show you like the common costs of purchasing a home in Colorado. Like you can type in the numbers and then you can sort of do a scratch pad close for your buyers. I had an Excel file where I just collected, after I had done, 10 closings or so on the buyer side, I'd have a buyer Excel file and I would plug in the numbers and I'd have a basic idea of what their closing costs might be, not for the loan, but like for the house, right? For the title and the inspection and the appraisal and things like that. As far as it came to loan numbers, every loan is completely different. So don't even start going down that kind of rabbit hole, but they could get those numbers from their lender for sure, but give them an idea of how much things cost. So if you have, especially if you have one person, two people, three people, however many it is that's buying the house, but they're really stretching and they're going to be eating a lot of tuna fish sandwiches to make this work. They're really trying to make their payment happen, especially with the mortgage rates going up right now. So you're going to want to make sure you help them out so they don't get weeks into the contract and then they decide they can't actually buy the house. So again, I'm going to keep going, but stop me if you have questions. So now you're writing the offer. You've determined you're actually going to write the offer. I put some buyer clauses that I was certain to forget about in here. And we don't really, in Colorado, we're not doing this deed by attorney anymore. That was like, there was a good 5-10 years where people were always, oh, I need an attorney to write up the deed. And I always would forget to put that in a contract. Whatever it is that you forget, put it in here so that you don't forget. One of them for me, I see a lot around this office, and I should probably add to this, is septic. So we have septic rules. So do not, major problem if you write a contract that has a septic system and you forget to write in who's going to be doing all the transfer of title, because it could be a good $1,500 or more to get that done. So here's water and ditch certificates. I always would forget irrigation, so I used to write that in. I used to like to do my own wire fraud clause. That was before it was in the contract. Cleaning clause. I always forget the cleaning clause. And what I would do on a cleaning clause is I just type in a very simple cleaning clause. Make sure you have one in your contract system. And the one that I have loaded is like, seller shall leave the premises clean of any debris, trash, and shall leave it broom swept, right? Pretty simple. Shall leave the floors swept and mopped. Very, very simple. And then what you do is you show your buyer that and say, is this enough? Is this adequate for your needs? Or do you want to add more cleaning clause to this, like more items? Do you want the carpets professionally cleaned, or just can the seller do it? Do you care? Do you want the windows washed? Do you want, the little, especially in nice houses where they take off the big paintings off the walls and they leave the little holes in the walls? Do you want someone to repaint that to the same color and fill in the little holes? Like, do you want to clean out the cabinets? Does it matter to do a deep clean in the bathroom? Whatever it is that they care about, don't think that you can figure out what's in their head, what matters to them, but name all those things. Say, here's the basic clause. What do you want to add to it? That was one that I would tend to forget. And then guess who was paying for it? Always me, because I'd forget to put it in. And then mineral rights. Mineral rights in Colorado. I don't think this is a Colorado thing. I think it's across the country, but I could be wrong against that. So irrigation, to get irrigation, you need to include it in the contract, or else the buyer doesn't get it, right? It's the opposite with mineral rights. If you speak about it, you speak about it, but if nobody says anything about it, it automatically transfers to the buyer. Mineral rights transfer to the buyer unless the seller reserves those rights in the contract. And guess who made a mistake on that? It was one of my last contracts before I came back to Coldwell Banker. So I was already a manager. I've been like 15 years in the business. I'm driving back to Durango. I got my Bluetooth in my ear, and my attorney, seller, says, oh, could you make sure to counter this offer and put in there that we want to reserve the mineral rights? Yep. Okay, I'll get back to the office. I'll do that. But I didn't write it down because I'm driving. I took the phone call. Shouldn't have taken the phone call. Guess who forgot to put it in? So yeah, there's some things you want to just make sure you get in those offers. So make this your own, and whatever that is that you struggle with, make sure they know. Okay, here's another one that I found. It's actually, it kind of got funny after a while because I just couldn't believe that this is the way people think, but it's okay. Everybody has not bought and sold 100 homes before. When you have earnest money in a contract, you write in the earnest money, you're going to give me $5,000. Like, people literally think now in today's age, people wire money back and forth. Okay. So if they're having their earnest money wired, they obviously know the money is leaving their account. They write you a check. For some magical reason, the buyers think that that check is just going into your folder and it's not getting deposited. So I had it so many times where I get the check and then it would get deposited and it would, there'd be no money in the account. And the people would be like, oh, I didn't know you were going to cash that check. I'm like, well, what do you think? You're writing me an earnest money check. Like, yes, it goes into a trust account. It's safe. But explain what earnest money is. Explain that it just sits in a trust account. It does not go to the seller unless you write it into the offer. But that it's going to get cashed and sit there. So make sure whatever you're giving me for earnest money, whatever, it's always negotiable. So whatever you write into the contract as your earnest money, make sure that it's the kind of money that you can live without until closing. Okay, that you're not going to be eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches because you decided to give me. I keep talking about sandwiches, must be almost lunchtime, but make sure you're going to be okay with giving me $5,000. And if you can't afford it, then maybe it's okay to give $4,000 so you can like pay for your groceries until closing. Okay. So make sure they know that it will be deposited. Email completed signed contract to lender. And if it's a mobile or modular, make sure you tell them so you're not being like Heather Erb. So the signed contract to the lender, this is right after you go under contract. You need the lender to know. So if you're on the seller side, at least in my area, it's traditional for the seller's agent to order title. And it is traditional for the buyer. Obviously, you're dealing with all your lender stuff. You got to get that lender a copy of that contract the second it goes under contract so they can start working on it if they've chosen their lender yet, which hopefully they do real quick. Now, here's one that I didn't need to remember, but when you go under contract, you need to press that button that says new under contract form. Get that done within like 24 hours so that Shawnee and Miranda can get in there and get you a checklist. And then just start loading your contracts into IQ right away. The quicker you get those things into IQ and you press the notify button, the quicker you're going to find out if you made a mistake on something, you forgot something. And it's not so embarrassing to go back to your buyer and say, hey, you know what? I noticed this typo I made. I need to clarify it and amend, extend. You want to find out about that right away. It is so embarrassing, again, to get mostly through your contract, go, oh, I guess I'll get this stuff into my office. It's like 5 days before closing. And Shawnee and Miranda tell you, you know, you totally messed up this one thing and we need an AE. And you go, well, the date's already passed. And they say, yeah, but you made a mistake. You got to make it right. And then you got to go back to your buyer, and you just, it makes you look pretty unprofessional if you're not getting these things done right away. So make sure you get your contracts up to IQ. As soon as you get any documents, just load it in the contract. It's kind of, or not contract, but in your checklist. It's kind of fun to watch your checklist start filling up. So just get it in there and check those things off. Getting disclosures signed and into IQ. Again, oh, well, Guida, you're in Colorado, so I'm just going to talk about as it is in Colorado. So in Colorado, the property disclosure, if your buyer signs that, it means that they received it. It doesn't mean that they're okay with what the content of what's in there, okay? So when you get this property disclosure to your buyer right away and you say, hey, I want you to sign this to say you've received it. This does not mean you're like okay with anything in here, just that you signed it, okay? We got the inspection time to ask questions and to get things inspected and to see if you're going to be okay with the water leak that they're talking about or the mold they're talking about in here. You're just stating that you received it. Totally different for the square footage disclosure. The square footage disclosure, as it says right on the bottom, and again, if somebody else is watching this, I'm talking about Colorado, your disclosures might be different. Our disclosure right at the bottom says, this is how this is the tool that the seller used to market this property. This is the square footage that they're using to market this property. And it by citing it, you were saying you are okay with that. Okay. So you're saying you're okay with whatever's on the square footage and that you're not going to go fighting the square footage that they put in the MLS on this other one, the property disclosure. You're just saying that you received it. Okay. So source of water, you only need a source of water addendum if you don't have the property disclosure filled out. Property disclosure is filled out, you don't need, and it has a whole, the source of water is in the property disclosure. That's why there's a whole source of water. Make sure it's all totally filled out and you sign off on it. You only need the source of water when you're dealing with, let's say it's a foreclosure or it's an estate sale, or there's some reason that the person has never visited the property and they decide not to do a property disclosure. Maybe vacant land, the person hasn't visited in 20 years. They say, look, I'm not giving you a property disclosure. They have to do a source of water, even if there is no water. So even a piece of vacant land with no well, with no central water hooked up, nothing, you still need a source of water addendum, because you're disclosing, the seller is disclosing where you would get water to the property. That's what you're disclosing. So make sure you get those in, and just know you don't have to go overboard and get a source of water for every property. It's only if you didn't have the property disclosure. Now, this one is getting super important again in our MLS. Print the MLS sheet the day you go under contract for the amount of commission stated. I just sent out an email to my agents 2 days ago or 3 days ago about this. Okay. So when you go into the MLS, there's certain things that when you're showing a property to your customer, you might print them out. I don't know if you're old school. I used to print out the MLS sheet, so we had it with us when we were showing the property, but you have to print it in a certain way that it's not showing all the confidential information. It doesn't have commission and things like that on there. It might not have the seller's name on there. You're just having like, how many bedrooms is it? What are the taxes? Those sort of things, right? So after you go under contract, you want to print out the full detail, everything that was marketed on this property. You print that thing out and you put it in a hard folder, like a paper folder, right? Because what happens in these bad markets is you have a lot of time that happens between the time you showed the property, the time you wrote the offer, the time you went under contract. Okay. So let me give you this scenario. Tom, the listing agent, he can't get this property sold, and he's been trying for 4 months, and he goes to the seller and he goes, seller, we got to do a price reduction. And they go, oh, I don't know, $10,000. That's a lot. Tom, I'll reduce my price if you reduce the commission also. If I take a hit, I want the agents to take a hit. Okay, well, instead of offering 3%, how about we offer 2% to the buyer's agent? Okay, yep, that's fair. Okay, I'm going to write up an amendment. You have shown the property already, and you are about to write the offer. They're signing the amendment now, and you hand in the offer. It goes under contract. You showed the property when it was at 3%, and magically before closing, or at closing, you get a settlement statement that shows you're getting 2%. So how did that happen? The only way you can trace if it should have been higher when you listed and sold that property is if you actually print out that sheet for that date so that it shows what it was, okay? Because it happens more than you know, and it doesn't always mean someone's trying to trick you or take your money away. It's just because these things are all in the works while you're trying to write an offer and it takes you 4 days to write the offer. It just leaves a really bad taste in your mouth if you're not getting your full whatever it was percent at closing and you're like, oh my God, they did that purposely. Well, let's prove it by just printing it out. Sorry for the long-winded statement, but that's why I always, because it happened to me more than once. And I just started printing it out, and that way I could prove what it was supposed to be. Okay. So, and also, what if they just made a mistake? What if they were supposed to put in 2.5% in the MLS, but they put 3? The agent realizes it right before closing and goes, oh no, I had the wrong amount in there. Oh shoot, well, nobody will notice. I'll just go in there and change it. Again, you're keeping people truthful. Make the calendar email to buyers. Make calendar email to buyers. Okay, so in Colorado, we have CTME contracts. Guida, I don't know if you're using that, but CTME has a beautiful, it's not great, but I shouldn't say beautiful. It's just a fine contract date thing. And it's going to show all the different contract dates. After you go under contract, check that they're correct. It might not be correct if you did a bunch of counters back and forth. Excuse me. Once you know it's correct, you look at the calendar contract dates, then you look at the calendar, and then you can email that calendar right to your buyer or seller, right? So do it right from CTME. And I used to always print it out as well, do a PDF print, and then send it to them as a PDF as well. So they can actually just print it and put it on their fridge. Oh, people love that. They have their calendar for their fridge. So it has everybody's deadlines in it. So now what I used to do is I did it in Gmail. So if for some reason you like Gmail better or some other way better, I'd create a calendar for them and I'd like color code buyer deadlines, seller deadlines. Like I had pink for one and I have red for the other. And that way people could know looking at it, is this my deadline or is this somebody else's deadline? But share the deadlines with them so they can kind of work through the contract and they can cross days off when they're getting closer to buying the house. And then again, you want to go over the deadlines with them immediately after going under contract. I have a couple of things that I use. I use a congratulations, you're under contract letter that I send out. If you want a copy of that, I'm happy to give it to you. It has all the things that they need to do before closing, like get back to me if you want a home warranty. Get back to me if you want someone to measure the square feet in your homes. Get back to me if you want to check into sex offenders in the neighborhood. Like it's a checklist, not a checklist, it's a letter, right? So I send that out to them, but I also go over all the dates and deadlines in the contract. I don't want to be pulling that contract out again and looking at the dates with them. I want a calendar that I can put on my wall and every day look at and go, okay, we have 3 days before the inspection. We should probably make sure we get this done and let's do this. And that way you can be communicating in a better way. So print one for your file. Pick and hire the inspector. This all happens like 24 hours after you go under contract. You should probably already know who the inspector is. Oh my God, make sure the utilities are on. Even in a new build, I've had people go over to do the inspection and they're like, the gas is just, there's no meter here. There's just a pipe sticking out of the wall. I'm like, oh, you can't check the furnace. Like who knew to ask them to get the gas turned on? I thought people just do this. No, the electricity isn't always on, especially if you've got a house that's winterized. Make sure you have contract language in there that somebody's going to get it unwinterized in 5 days, and keep it with all the utilities on till the appraisal is done. Okay. I didn't know that either. I made a mistake on that. Not only does the inspector need to check all the utilities, but the appraiser needs to make sure that the hot water heater's on and working, make sure the furnace works. So who knew? Anyway, yeah, you need both of those. And then if the seller wants to pay for it to be re-winterized because they're freaking out, it's going to get like frozen, that's fine. But it has to be on for the inspection. If they want a radon test, make sure you know right away. There are 2 kinds of well tests. We had a E&O claim that was just settled against our agent because there are 2 kinds of well tests. If you have a well, you want to test for quality, of course, my agent knew this, but my 15-year agent did not think about quantity. Okay. They thought about it. It was just, they trusted the seller's judgment that it was enough water and they should have done the test, right? So make sure you're getting a quality test if they want to. I mean, it's up to your buyer, but you want to talk to them about why it's very important to test a well. Make sure you're getting a quantity test, i.e. talk to a well driller in town and see how long it would take them to get out there. And also a quality test, which a lot of your local, ours is San Juan Basin Health. So your health department, your local college might do the water test, things like that. Septic test, if you're in our area, you absolutely need to get your septic done. Any others, ask buyer. So some people are all worried about something. People are worried about different things. You could spend, I always tell my buyers, you could spend 10 grand on getting a house inspected if you wanted to. You could check into termites and like mold and, you know, get people in a hazmat suit and all these different kinds of things. Radon is an important one because that happens more often than the others. Like we don't have termites in our area most of the time. And if you have termites, excuse me, if you have termites, the inspector sees the signs that there were termites, and then you can go get the termite inspection afterwards. You don't have to just order a termite inspection. That's our area. But just know there's tons of tests, and to each their own. You bring up the ones that are more popular in your area. Like obviously, if you know there's foundation problems, getting a structural engineer would be important. But it's up to the buyer what's important to them. Call the building department about permits. I did that. So I put this post 76 in for my county. So in my county, they started doing building permits in 1976. And this is the phone number. So again, just download this and put your own phone number in there. This was for the county. Also the city, when I was selling, the city of Durango would only keep all the permits for 10 years. Can you believe it? So like I bought my house and they said, I don't know if it was permitted correctly because it was done more than 10 years ago. I'm like, what? You like throw out the permits after 10 years? Well, they did at the time. So just know to check on those and make sure you don't have something that it didn't get the CO is what it's usually called, the certificate of occupancy that allowed the people to move in. If somebody did something and didn't need a loan to do it, a lot of times those COs like, oh, I'll get to it. I'll get it done at some point. And then it just got forgotten. The seller doesn't always know either, because sometimes their agent didn't check into these things. So make sure you're checking to make sure all the permits were finalized, and just do extra due diligence for your buyer. Don't expect the buyer to do these things. It's just a phone call. Just get it done. And then if it wasn't done, you can ask the seller to fix these things. You don't want to find out after closing. Now, this is funny. I need to update this because Wanda has retired. We just sold her house this year. But this is for us. This is the septic department, and you just call them and get it started. We also have concierge septic companies that will go in there and take care of the whole thing for you. And it generally is a seller cost to do this, but it's just dependent on your contract. Make sure you get that started right away. Talk to buyers about Megan's Law. So Megan's Law is it's about sex offenders. And it's the buyer has a right to check into whether there's sex offenders living in the neighborhood. You might have a single guy that's moving into a house and you think, well, who cares? It's a single guy. Like, what does he care about a sex offender? Well, you better believe that if there's a sex offender that lives next to the house that you're selling that person, they don't move very often. Because once they have a place and they're not the type of, they got to like get checked out every time they move to a new house. So sex offenders do not move very often. And once they're implanted in a neighborhood, they usually just stay. I'm telling you this because your single guy that might not care if there's a sex offender living there is sure going to care when 2 years later he goes to sell his house and goes, oh my God, I got this horrible sex offender living next to me. Now we got to disclose it to everyone, obviously, and nobody's going to want to buy this house, right? So always check on that. And that's not something you should be doing, because what if you miss something? So for us around here, yes, there's tons of apps online. Don't trust those. I don't know which one's better than the other unless it's like somehow like okayed by your state department. I used to call, if I was in the county, I told my, if the house was in the county, if the house was in town, I would still have my buyers call both the city and the county to find out where the closest sex offenders are to that house. Okay. So they usually said two different things when they'd call me back. Oh my God, there's a lot of sex offenders. Because remember, it doesn't take much sometimes to get on the list. Okay. Like a 19-year-old that has a girlfriend who's 17 kind of thing. But just they'll be warned, like if you're in a big neighborhood, you're going to find they're scattered throughout the neighborhood, and it's their decision whether they feel comfortable going through that sale or not. You can even look into what the person did usually. So they can have a good feeling about it. But make sure they do that before the inspection deadline. So you're not getting like you find out the day before closing, there's some horrible sex offender next to you, but have the conversation. And the way I have the conversation, it's written into the Colorado contracts already, but I also just put it in my, I don't have to bring it up because it's in a letter. It's congratulations, you're under contract. Here's some things you might want to check into. And the way I wrote it, it's the way I talk is, check into city, call this number to ask about sex offenders in the neighborhood. It sure would suck if you found that out after closing. That's how I put it in my letter. So the people never failed. They'd go and check. And all I do is like a couple days before the inspection, I just say, hey, did you happen to call the city and the county about the sex offender? So I don't go and have a long conversation about it. I just would make sure they checked. Sorry, my voice is giving out. Okay. Mineral rights questions. So if people don't understand mineral rights, I don't know if this changes in different parts of Colorado, but basically where we live, like Montrose, Durango, Danielle, I'm sure it's south of the border too. You're not gonna get your mineral rights when you're buying property here. Like very rarely. I think a few times in my life have I ever transferred land that still had mineral rights on it. It's been severed back in the day, a long, long time ago. And if you want to trace back who owns your mineral rights, it's going to cost you 8 to 10 grand, at least, if not like 15, 20 grand to hire what's called a landman, to trace the chain of ownership. So if they have questions, they're like, God, there's gas wells. Like, can a gas well be put next to my property? Have them call someone that they can talk to. Sorry, hold on. I got to get a drink. So in our area, there's San Juan Citizens Alliance is like the pro-citizen, like try to regulate the gas companies. We also have one that's called, oh my gosh, what is her name? There's somebody that's with the Gas Alliance. So she's on the exact opposite side. So I send them to the citizens group. I send them to the gas and oil group that says, oh, we have no problem with drilling. It's going to just happen everywhere. And then as a center, as a balance, I also send them to our county. They usually have a person that can talk to you about what the rights are of the individual and whether you might see more gas drilling in your area, that sort of thing. Mineral rights are important to just get figured out. Make sure the people feel comfortable. Some people don't want a gas well near them and other people don't care. Utility cost. If your people care, you can also find on GIS in my area where the gas wells are. Okay, so you can actually look all that stuff up on GIS in La Plata County. I don't know how it is in the rest of the state. Utility cost, if they care what the utilities are, have them, or you could call like the electric company, the gas company, find out how much it would cost to live in the house. Obviously, I say this is obviously not to everybody. Utility cost, title search. When you get the title work, send it to your buyer and go over it. Some people just don't send the title work. You get something from this title company, you immediately send it to your buyer just to make sure they've received it. Make sure that they're talking to irrigation, called Division of Water Resources, if they have questions. There's well changes of status. I think that happens with your closings now, but just make sure that they look into the well, here's water commissioner. This is our local water commissioner. That would have to do with just understanding wells in the area. Irrigation, you'd be calling the ditch company just to understand more about your rights to I have one share. What does one share mean? What does 1 acre foot mean I can do? How does it work every year? How often do you clean my ditch? What am I to expect? Any of those kind of questions, make sure they look into. And then here, this is another Colorado thing. These are the things that you should be getting as part of your, what used to be called the CIC disclosure. So it's your association documents, okay? So you should be getting all of these different things and looking into it. So during the time, I teach other classes about this, but you should be getting the meeting minutes. You should be getting the budget. You should be getting the contact in the HOA so your buyer can go and call that person and feel good about the HOA that they're moving into. Well, we could talk about that more in another class, but just know they really should, if they can take it to an attorney and have an attorney look at it with them and tell them whether they feel that it is that the HOA has enough money to do what they need to do to plow snow in the winter, and they aren't running up a deficit. Just make sure they get those disclosures, and then you ask them, do you want an attorney to look at these with you? I have this as part of my my under contract checklist that I send to the buyer, is like, as soon as we get these things, if you want an attorney to look at them, I'll provide you with a list of real estate attorneys. And then here's another one. These are all like, who knew a buyer would ask this? How many times did I have a buyer, after we handed in the inspection objection, we get the resolution, and they go, oh, what about this? And I'm like, dude, that ship has sailed. Like, we are done with inspection. We can't be asking other things now. Like, oh, but I didn't understand. Like, oh my God, like, how much do we have to go through this? So what I was taught in a legal class was, you look right at your buyer as you're doing the objection and you say, do you have any other inspection issue that you need satisfied before you move on this home, or like move forward with this home? That does it. That's the ticket. And when you say that, then they go, oh, no, we're good. Let's move on. Okay. Now they get that it's not your fault that you moved on before they were ready. Getting a copy of the survey. So if you're ordering it, of course, you're going to get a copy of it. But if the seller's ordering it, just keep up with that. And do they want a home warranty at closing? Here's the deal with home warranties. You can't buy them after closing. It's got to be before closing. So you can almost do one at the closing table. It usually, you want a couple of days of notice before that happens. Oh, there's a question here. Guida, email to access. Absolutely, Guida. I'll make sure I get that to you. If you're still there, yep, you're still there. Send me your email, or put your email on there. Otherwise, I can look it up. Okay. Confirm due diligence. Hold on. Let me get this off of here. Home warranty. Just make sure that, home warranties are great because, from what I understand, those companies don't make any money in the first year. The way they make money, because you're always going to find something that's wrong with a house after you move in, but they make money if you keep getting a home warranty for year after year. So a lot of people get a home warranty and then they just keep paying the bill once a year. That's how those companies make money. So I think it's always worth getting. And if you ever have a family, single person, whatever, it's like they're really trying to make it work in this house, make sure to consider getting them a home warranty at closing if they're not doing it for themselves. Please keep on track of that appraisal deadline. Don't just assume the appraiser is going to go out there. In Colorado, it is okay for you to call the appraiser and say, are you actually going to be out there on the 18th? When can I expect this? So the lender uses a third party to get the appraiser, but as soon as the appraisal is ordered, you can ask the lender, who is it that's on it? And they're going to go, oh, I don't know. Let me check. They'll give you the name. You call that appraiser and say, hey, I'm just following up. Heather, if you need anything, let me know. It looks like you're going to be out there on the 9th. You call on the 8th. You say, I'm just making sure you're going to be out there tomorrow. Okay. And then on the 9th, you say, okay, just making sure, what day did you say you're going to have that back to us? So you just want to know ahead of time if this person says, I really need more time. It's not a surprise. Surprise, the day of the appraisal is due. They say they need 3 more days. You're going to have a lot harder time getting a amend extend. Okay. So loan, you want to clear to close before you pass that last loan objection that you're actually going to get that loan. Then you're going to make sure you have everything up in IQ. You're going to want to schedule a walkthrough, and you bring your checklist and make sure you have your everything that needs to be signed done. And then I also have a utility list. I'm going to send her a utility list too. Do you have one of those up here, Danielle? I have a utility list for the area.
I would love one.
Yeah. And so what I did is I put all the utilities I've ever called on one sheet. And I would just put X's by the ones that were applicable, like your CenturyLink or your trash service. And I'd make sure they called it before closing, because some of those places, if you don't have it connected before closing and the seller's already cut theirs off, that LPA does not hesitate. They'll shut that thing off from their office, and then it's like $125 to click back into your new buyer's name, right? And I had it happen once. Oh my God, I was already a manager and I forgot to tell somebody about doing LPA. Of course, it's a PERG rental over Christmas, and utilities were shut off. The electric was shut off. Everything was off. There were renters in there, and they just had to put them in somebody else's unit. And my person lost a bunch of money because they didn't set up their electric. And it was my fault, because I feel like it's my fault, because I should have been the one that reminded them to get that done. Okay. And also, if it's a cash deal, make sure they get home insurance, because I find with people with cash don't always think about that. Scheduling time with the closer, I always did that a week ahead of time to make sure that I would get the date and the time I wanted. Well, you're going to get the date you wanted, but just to make sure I got the time I wanted. If my people can only close at 8:30 in the morning because they got to get to work, like, I want to make sure I get that time and I don't upset them or cause them anxiety. And then make sure to remember to call the lender and tell them when the closing is, because I've forgotten to do that before. They're like, when are we closing tomorrow? I'm like, 10 a.m. Oh, okay. Like, they just didn't know. Make sure you get the keys and that you have a way to get them what they need to get so they can get in the house at closing, and explain how the funds get to closing. So how many days in advance they need to make sure that they text that, so that it is not text that, but wire that to make sure it gets to the closing company. And then the other thing, this is just like what you do after closing. So I used to always want to call them in the morning after closing, first night they slept there. How'd you sleep last night? How'd it feel? Call them in a week. Do you need anything? Call them in 21 days. 21 days, we used to give actual binders of their title insurance after about 7 days. So my 21-day call, my reason for calling would be like, hey, I just wanted to check that you did get that final binder for your title insurance. And they always would say, oh, I don't think I got that. And then they'd call me back. Oh, no, I did get it. Thank you so much. So just make something up, make up some reason that you need to call them so much, but it makes them feel awesome. And then I'd put them in my calendar for an anniversary card the next year, because you're not going to remember after that. Just put it in right away so that you remember to do it. And then take the time to do your paperwork, get everything closed so that you don't have to come back a month later and say, oh, it's time to put this file away. Just do it now. Back up all your emails, back up all your texts, get everything off your phone. Like, just be clean, be clear, and make sure you get that done so you don't just end up with piles and piles on your desk. And then also put them in for, if you want to get a copy of the settlement statement that they had and put it in a file somewhere. I mean, IQ is easy enough. That way, the following year, you can set them up. February 1st, you go and shoot them their settlement statement and say, hey, you might need this for your taxes this year. Here you go. It's just another touch that's really nice. But that's all I got. You have any questions, Danielle? You're the last one.
No, I don't think so.
Cool. Well,
Actually,
go ahead.
I had one. When you were talking about foundation inspections.
Yeah.
So in Colorado, on a manufacturer, do you only have to get a foundation inspection if it's been moved, or
Correct.
Is it required?
I don't think it's like a move thing. It's if it's permanent. So, and I don't really know, because I've only ever sold permanent foundation ones. There didn't used to be any loans available for anything that wasn't permanent, anything that wasn't documented, purged, all those words. So it has something to do with purged and all that. So anyway, now that loans are easier again than they were after the crisis, you can get loans from places like local banks sometimes, but RHA or Homes Fund has money to lend on things that no one else can lend money on. And so because of that, it's really complicated to get to closing now. It used to be, oh, you just can't get a loan. Somebody's going to have to buy cash or bring cash. Now that you can get loans, there are so many requirements to get through the process. And, Hazel Hackett in our office has gone through it. Who else recently? I bet there's been 3 people recently that had to go through it that would know, but Hazel is one that would know off the top of her head if you run into her, if you ever give her a call.
Yeah, I was just curious. In New Mexico, and if you're financing, you have to get it. And
You
but
have
yeah,
to get it no
if-
matter what. So you got to get a
Mhm.
foundation inspection no matter what, if you're getting a loan for a
Yeah, if
manufactured
you're-
house.
Okay.
Is that what you're saying though?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And yeah, it's the same though. I mean, it's hard to find financing if it's been moved. It's
Yeah, it is.
very
So
rare.
Homespun will do it up here. And so know that also, Danielle, that might not be a New Mexico thing. That might be a lending thing, like a Fannie Freddie thing.
Yeah.
Because the last time I sold one, because you got to remember, even before I was a manager, I was selling at the resort for a few years. So it's probably been 8 years since I sold, 8 to 10 years since I've sold one. I bet the rules have changed and you now probably have to do it no matter what. I bet I would just expect that you'd have to do one no matter what. Who do you go to even? Like,